She used to call me boy, as if I were just passing through her life. But one day when everything fell apart, I became the one she leaned on. And that's when I learned. Some moments force you to grow up faster than time ever could. Hey, my name's Ethan Hayes. I'm 24 years old, living in this quiet little town called Willow Creek, tucked away in the heart of Wisconsin. It's the kind of place where the winters drag on forever, blanketing everything in snow for months, and the summers are short bursts of green fields and dairy farms stretching out as far as you can see. People here live slow. Everyone knows everyone's business, and old stories get retold over coffee at the diner, like they're fresh news. It's not exciting, but it's home. I've been here my whole life, and honestly, I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. By day, I'm the full-time maintenance guy at Willow Creek High School. I fix whatever breaks: leaky faucets, creaky desks, shattered windows from kids throwing baseballs too close to the building. In the winters, I'm out there shoveling snow before the buses roll in, making sure the paths are clear so no one slips. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy. Evenings, I head out to my uncle's small farm on the edge of town helping with the chores. Feeding the cows, mending fences, hauling hay. It's physical, keeps me in shape, and gives me something to do besides staring at the walls of my old wooden house. I live alone there, in the place my mom left me when she passed away from cancer when I was 16. Dad split long before that, just up and left one night without a word. School was never my thing. Too many bad memories of being the quiet kid who didn't fit in, but sticking around the high school as the fix-it guy feels like some kind of ironic full circle. Not many options in a town this small anyway. I keep to myself mostly. Don't have a big group of friends, just a couple guys from the farm who grab a beer with me on weekends. Life's simple. Wake up early, work hard, crash at night. No drama, no big dreams pulling me away. That's how I like it. Or at least, that's what I told myself until she showed up. Her name's Sophia Reynolds. She's 41, the new English teacher who moved here about a year ago from some big city out east. I didn't know much about her at first, just that she took over the literature classes and kept a low profile. Folks in town whispered she was running from something, maybe a bad divorce or city burnout, but no one pried too hard. Willow Creek's like that. Curious, but polite. She lives alone in a cozy little house by the lake, the kind with flower boxes in the windows and a porch swing that creaks in the wind. From what I gathered overhearing teachers in the staff room, she used to have a family, a steady life, but it all fell apart. She chose this place to start over, small enough to disappear into, big enough to not feel trapped. She's got this quiet strength about her, always dressed neatly in skirts and blouses, her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, and a smile that lights up when she's talking about books. But there's a sadness in her eyes sometimes, like she's carrying invisible weight. We met in the most ordinary way, but damn if it didn't hit me like a freight train. It was one of those crisp fall mornings, the kind where the leaves are turning gold and red, and the air smells like wood smoke from distant chimneys. I was in the maintenance shed, sorting tools, when the principal buzzed me on the radio. "Ethan, emergency in room 212. Pipe burst. Get there quick." I grabbed my toolkit and jogged over, heart already pounding because I knew what a mess that could be. Water everywhere, kids freaking out. When I pushed open the door to room 212, it was chaos. Water was spraying from a cracked pipe under the sink at the back, flooding the floor in a growing puddle that soaked textbooks and scattered papers. The students, juniors I think, were yelling and laughing, some standing on desks to avoid the mess, others snapping pictures on their phones, and there she was, Sophia, right in the middle of it, trying to keep order with a towel pressed against the leak, her blouse already damp and clinging in spots. Her face was flushed, a mix of frustration and embarrassment, but she held it together like a pro. "Everyone, stay calm, Ethan will fix this," she called out, spotting me as I rushed in. I nodded, dropping to my knees and crawling under the cabinet, the cold water hitting my face like needles. My tools clattered as I worked fast, twisting the shutoff valve and clamping the pipe. It was a nightmare, rusty fittings, slippery hands, but I got it under control in minutes. As the spray died down to a drip, the room quieted, and I backed out, soaked from head to toe, my shirt plastered to my chest and arms aching from the awkward angle. Sophia handed me a dry towel from her desk, her eyes wide with relief. "Thank you, Ethan." That was a disaster waiting to happen. Her voice was steady, but there was a slight tremble, like the adrenaline was still pumping. Up close, I noticed things I hadn't before. The faint lines around her eyes from years of smiling, the way her hair had come loose in strands framing her face. She was beautiful, not in a flashy way, but real, effortless. My heart skipped, and I felt like an idiot for even thinking it. She's the teacher. I'm the maintenance guy, worlds apart. I wiped my face, trying to play it cool. No problem, ma'am, just doing my job. But she laughed, a soft, genuine sound that cut through the awkwardness. Ma'am, you make me sound ancient, and you're so young. You look like one of my old students. Her words hung there, teasing but kind, and I felt a flush creep up my neck. I shrugged, forcing a grin. Guess that makes me the kid in your eyes, huh? She tilted her head, her smile deepening. Exactly, a good-hearted kid. The way she said it wasn't mocking, it was warm, almost affectionate. But it stuck with me like a thorn. Kid. Boy. It echoed in my head as I gathered my tools and left, the students clapping half-jokingly. Outside in the hall, I leaned against the wall, breathing hard, not just from the work, but from that moment. Why did her words hit so deep? Was it the age gap staring me in the face or something else? I didn't know then, but that simple exchange cracked open a door I hadn't even realized was there. And as I walked back to the shed, dripping water with every step, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a fix-it job. It was the start of something that would flood my life in ways I never expected. After that pipe burst fiasco, I found myself getting called to fix things in the English wing more often than usual. It started small, a flickering light in the hallway outside her room, a stuck window that wouldn't latch properly during the first cold snap. Each time, I'd show up with my toolkit, nod hello, and get to work while Sophia graded papers or prepped lessons at her desk. At first, our interactions were polite and quick. Thanks again, Ethan, she'd say with that warm smile, and I'd mumble something like, no trouble at all. But over the weeks, those moments stretched a little longer. She'd ask about my day, or I'd comment on the stack of essays she was buried under. It felt natural, like we were just two people crossing paths in the quiet after-school hours. I didn't push it. Hell, I didn't even know what it was yet. But I started looking forward to those calls. Willow Creek High wasn't huge, but it was old, always something breaking down. One afternoon, I was up on a ladder replacing a ceiling tile in her classroom when she came in early from lunch. The room was empty, just the two of us. You're like the school's guardian angel, she said, leaning against the doorframe with a coffee mug in hand. I laughed, nearly dropping the tile. More like the handyman who shows up when things fall apart. She tilted her head, watching me work. That's not a bad thing. Falling apart happens to all of us sometimes. That stuck with me too, just like her kid comment. We chatted a bit more that day about the weather turning, how the kids were getting restless with holidays coming up. Nothing deep, but it was easy, comfortable. After that, it became a pattern. I'd finish my rounds late, and if her light was still on, I'd poke my head in to say goodnight. Sometimes she'd wave me off with a tired grin. Other times, she'd invite me to sit for a minute while she wrapped up. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the classroom in orange hues, she pulled a Tupperware from her bag and slid it across the desk. Try this, she said. I baked them last night. Apple cinnamon muffins, a little sweet maybe. I hesitated, wiping my hands on my jeans before taking one. The warmth seeped through the container and the smell hit me like a cozy memory I didn't know I had. I bit in, the flavors exploding, tart apple, warm spice, just the right amount of sugar. These are amazing, I said through a mouthful. You could sell them at the diner. She laughed that soft sound again. Flattery will get you everywhere, Ethan. But seriously, I bake when I can't sleep. Keeps my mind off things. I nodded, chewing slower. I get that. I tinker with stuff at the farm when things get too quiet. Fixes more than just fences. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing past the grease stains on my shirt. You don't talk much about your family, she said gently, not pushing, just observing. I stared at the muffin crumbs on my fingers, debating. Most people in town knew the basics, mom gone, dad a ghost. But I didn't like dredging it up. Not much to say, I finally admitted. Mom passed when I was a teen, cancer. Dad bailed years before that. Uncle's the closest thing I've got now. My voice came out flatter than I intended, but she didn't flinch or offer pity. Instead, she nodded slowly. I understand that kind of quiet. It's heavy, isn't it? And just like that, she opened up a crack. I had a family once, she said, her eyes drifting to the window. A husband, a house in the city, the whole picture. But it didn't last. He wanted control over everything. When it ended, I felt like I'd lost more than just a marriage. I came here to rebuild, but some days, it still feels like starting from zero. Her words hung in the air, vulnerable but steady. I didn't know what to say at first, so I just sat there, letting the silence be okay. Sounds tough, I finally murmured. But you're doing it. That's more than most. She smiled faintly. Thanks. Coming from you, that means something. From there, our talks deepened without us forcing it. We'd sit on the back steps of the school sometimes, watching the last buses pull away. I'd tell her about the rough patches growing up, learning to fix things because no one else would, the loneliness of holidays alone. She'd share snippets of her old life, the pressure of city teaching, the fights that chipped away at her confidence, how baking and books became her escape. We laughed over lighter stuff too. I'd recount stories of kids pranking the janitor's closet, and she'd tell me about the time a student recited Shakespeare like a rapper, butchering the lines but owning it. Those moments felt like breaths of fresh air in my routine days. But through it all, she still called me kid now and then, in that affectionate way. You're a good kid, Ethan, she'd say after I helped carry her books to her car. It didn't sting like the first time. If anything, it made me smile. Yet deep down, I wondered if that's all she'd ever see me as. The young maintenance guy, the helpful boy in her eyes. We hadn't bared our deepest scars yet, mine from abandonment, hers from betrayal, but the connection was growing, quiet and steady, like roots pushing through soil. I didn't know where it was headed, but for the first time in years, my simple life didn't feel quite so empty. As the weeks turned into months, our after-school talks became a routine I didn't want to break. But in a small town like Willow Creek, nothing stays quiet for long. Whispers started creeping in, the kind that sneak up on you like fog rolling off the lake. At first, it was subtle. A sideways glance from the principal when I lingered too long in the English wing, or a teacher in the staff lounge raising an eyebrow as I passed. Then the comments came, half joking but sharp enough to sting. One day I was in the boiler room fixing a heater when I overheard two custodians chatting in the hall. That new English teacher sure spends a lot of time with the young maintenance kid, one said, chuckling. Bet she's just mothering him. The other laughed. Yeah, or maybe he's got a crush. Poor boy doesn't know better. I froze, wrench in hand, my face burning even though they couldn't see me. Boy. Kid. There it was again, that label I'd been trying to shake off. I didn't say anything, just finished the job and headed out, but it gnawed at me all afternoon. It got worse when the rumors reached Sophia. I heard about it indirectly. A colleague of hers, Mrs. Jenkins from the history department, pulled her aside in the lounge one morning. I wasn't there, but Sophia told me later, her voice laced with frustration. She said it half teasing. Sophia explained as we sat on the steps that evening, the air crisp with the first hints of winter. You're getting awfully friendly with that young handyman, Sophia. Careful, people might talk. Sophia rolled her eyes, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I told her we're just talking, colleagues. But you know how it is here, everyone assumes the worst. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, small town syndrome. But inside it hit hard. Was that how everyone saw us? Her as the older teacher humoring the young handyman, and me as some naive kid tagging along? I started second-guessing everything. Did she see me that way too? The good-hearted kid she'd called me that first day? It twisted in my gut, making our conversations feel heavier. I pulled back a little, finishing jobs quicker, saying goodnight sooner. Sophia noticed, of course. You seem distant lately, she said one afternoon while I tightened a loose doorknob in her room. I shrugged it off. Just busy with the farm. But it was a lie, and we both knew it. Then came the evening that cracked everything open. I was driving home after a long day, the sun dipping low behind the silos, when I passed the town's only decent diner, the Rusty Spoon. Through the window, I spotted her, Sophia, sitting at a booth with a man I didn't recognize. He looked older, maybe in his late 40s, dressed sharp in a button-down and slacks, like he was from out of town. They were laughing, him leaning in close, her hand on the table near his. He pulled out his wallet to pay, all gentlemanly, and walked her to her car, opening the door for her. I slowed my truck without thinking, heart pounding like I'd been punched. Who was he? An old friend? More? Jealousy hit me like a wave, hot and irrational. I drove home fuming, replaying the scene over and over. By the time I got to my porch, I was a mess, angry at myself for caring, angry at her for… what? Having a life outside our talks? The next day, I avoided her room entirely, but she found me in the parking lot after school, her coat bundled tight against the chill. "Ethan, what's going on? You've been off for days." Her eyes searched mine, concerned but steady. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Saw you at the diner last night," I blurted, my voice tighter than I meant. "With that guy? Looked cozy." She blinked, surprised. "That was my cousin, visiting from Milwaukee. We were catching up." Relief washed over me, but it mixed with the pent-up frustration. "Oh, well, good for you. Guess you prefer someone your age anyway, not some kid like me." She went still, her face paling. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" I ran a hand through my hair, the words tumbling out. "You always call me that. Kid. Boy. And now the rumors? Everyone thinks you're just humoring me like I'm some lost puppy. Maybe they're right. I'm just the young guy you chat with when you're bored." Her eyes flashed with hurt. "Is that what you think? That I see you as a child?" She stepped closer, voice low but intense. "I've never thought that. But maybe you're right about one thing, the age difference. It makes everything complicated." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. "Complicated? Try impossible. What am I to you anyway? The maintenance boy who listens to your stories?" She turned away, her breath visible in the cold air. "You're hurting me, Ethan. And yourself." The silence stretched, heavy and cold. I wanted to take it back, but the damage was done. We stood there, the gap between us feeling wider than ever. Not just years, but a chasm of unspoken fears and assumptions. For the first time, the age thing wasn't just a number. It was a blade, cutting deep into what we'd built. The days after our blow-up in the parking lot were brutal. Willow Creek felt smaller than ever, the silence between us louder than any storm. I threw myself into work, scrubbing floors, patching roofs, anything to keep my mind off the hurt in her eyes. I'd catch glimpses of her in the halls, her smile polite but distant, and I'd nod without stopping. No more late talks, no more muffins, just the ache of what I'd said replaying like a bad song stuck in my head. I regretted it all, but pride, or maybe fear, kept me from apologizing. What if she really did see me as just a kid? What if that's all I was? Then the blizzard hit. It rolled in fast that Friday afternoon, the kind of storm Wisconsin throws at you without mercy. Winds howling like wolves, snow piling up inches by the hour. School let out early, buses skidding on icy roads, and by evening, the town was locked down. Power flickered, streets turned into white deserts, and folks hunkered down with generators and canned soup. I was at home stoking the wood stove in my living room when my phone buzzed. A text from old Mrs. Harlan next door to Sophia. "Ethan, check on Ms. Reynolds. Saw her slip in her yard. Phone line's down here." My heart dropped. I didn't think twice. Grabbed my coat, boots, and flashlight, and trudged out into the whiteout. The wind whipped snow into my face like needles, visibility near zero, but I knew the way to her lake house by heart. It took twice as long as usual, my legs burning from pushing through drifts, but I got there. Her porch light was on, a dim glow cutting through the swirl. I pounded on the door, no answer. Panic rising, I circled to the side yard and spotted her. Sophia, half buried in a snowbank near her shed, trying to push herself up but wincing in pain. Her coat was dusted white, face pale against the cold. "Sophia!" I shouted over the wind, rushing to her side. She looked up, eyes wide with relief and tears freezing on her lashes. "Ethan, what are you… My ankle, I twisted it bad. Can't stand." Her voice shook, not just from the cold. I knelt, brushing snow off her, and without hesitating, scooped her up. One arm under her knees, the other around her back. She was lighter than I expected, her body tense against mine. "Hold on," I said, my breath fogging the air. "I've got you." The door was unlocked, thank God. I kicked it open and carried her inside, the warmth of her house hitting us like a blanket. I set her gently on the couch, propping her foot on a pillow. Snow melted off my boots and puddles on her rug, but I didn't care. "Let me see," I said, peeling off her sock carefully. Her ankle was swollen, already bruising purple. "This looks bad. We need ice and a doctor, but lines are down. I'll wrap it for now." She nodded, teeth chattering. "Ethan, you didn't have to come out in this. It's dangerous." I met her eyes, my voice firm. "Yes, I did. Now don't move. Let me handle it." I rummaged in her kitchen for supplies. A frozen bag of peas for ice, a towel to wrap it, some painkillers from her cabinet. As I worked, elevating her leg and securing the compress, she watched me in silence. The storm raged outside, windows rattling, but inside, it was just us. The crackle of her fireplace, the scent of pine from a candle she'd lit earlier. I brewed tea on her stove, the kettle whistling softly, and brought her a mug. "Drink this. It'll warm you up." She took it with trembling hands, sipping slowly. That's when the dam broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks, quiet at first, then sobs shaking her shoulders. "I'm so tired, Ethan," she whispered, voice cracking. "I act like I've got it all together, but I don't. My marriage? It destroyed me. He controlled everything, my job, my friends, even what I wore. I stayed too long, thinking I could fix it, but it left me empty. Coming here was supposed to be a fresh start, but some days I feel like I'm still that broken woman." I sat on the edge of the couch, close but not crowding her. Her words hit like the storm outside, raw, unrelenting. I'd seen glimpses of her pain before, but this was the flood. "Sophia," I said softly, "you're not broken. You're the strongest person I know." She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "No, look at me. Falling apart over a twisted ankle, and you're here, taking care of me like it's nothing." I reached out, hesitant, and covered her hand with mine. It was cold, but she didn't pull away. "It's not nothing, and you're not weak for needing help." She looked at me then, really looked, her eyes searching mine in the firelight. "You're not a kid anymore, Ethan." The words hung there, heavy with meaning. I swallowed, my throat tight. I never was, I just acted like it to protect myself. Growing up alone, fixing everything on my own, it made me scared of needing anyone, afraid they'd leave like Dad did. I paused, the confession spilling out. Nights at the farm, staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone would ever see me as more than the poor orphaned boy. We sat in that vulnerability, hands still linked. She squeezed mine gently. "Your marriage," I prompted softly. "What happened?" She took a shaky breath. "He belittled me constantly." "You're nothing without me," he'd say. Years of that chipped away until I believed it. When I finally left, I felt free but lost. No kids, no ties, just me, starting over at 40. Tears welled again. "I fear being weak in front of you, Ethan. You're so young, full of life. What if I drag you down?" I shifted closer, my free hand brushing a tear from her cheek. "You don't. You lift me up. Let me be your support." Our faces were inches apart, the storm a distant roar now. In that moment, under the blizzard's fury, every barrier crumbled. The age gap, the labels, the fears. We were just two wounded souls finally bearing it all. The storm passed eventually, leaving Willow Creek buried under a thick blanket of white, the world muffled and still. Sophia's ankle healed slowly over the next few weeks, bruised but not broken, much like us after that night. We didn't rush back into anything. The confessions we'd shared hung between us like fragile ornaments, beautiful but easy to shatter. But something had shifted irrevocably. The barriers we'd built, age, labels, fears, had crumbled in that firelit room. And in their place was a quiet understanding. We were no longer just teacher and maintenance guy or woman and kid. We were Ethan and Sophia, two people who'd seen each other's scars and chosen to stay anyway. At first, we kept things low-key. I'd stop by her house after work with groceries or firewood, using the excuse of checking on her injury. We'd sit by the lake, frozen solid now, a sheet of ice reflecting the gray winter sky, and talk for hours. No more holding back. She'd tell me about the dreams she'd buried during her marriage, wanting to write a book of poems, traveling to places she'd only read about. I'd share my own hidden hopes, maybe saving enough to buy a piece of land, turning it into something more than just a farm. "You've got time," she'd say, her hand finding mine. "Don't waste it like I did." And I'd squeeze back. "You're not wasting anything now." But in a town like this, secrets don't stay buried long. The rumors snowballed, just like the drifts outside. It started with glances at school, teachers whispering in the lounge, students giggling about Ms. Reynolds and the hot janitor. One day, the principal pulled me into his office, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Ethan, I've heard some talk. Just be careful. She's staff. Your support. Lines can blur." I nodded, face burning, but inside I seethed. Lines? What about the real ones we'd crossed, the ones that mattered? Sophia got it worse. A parent at a PTA meeting cornered her. "Is it true you're seeing that young Hayes boy at your age?" She told me about it later, her voice steady but eyes flashing. I wanted to tell her to mind her own business, but I just smiled and said, "We're friends." We couldn't hide forever. The stares, the whispers, they forced our hand. One crisp afternoon, with the snow starting to melt into slush, we decided to face it head on. We walked into the Rusty Spoon together, the diner's bell jingling like an announcement. Heads turned. Old-timers at the counter, families in booths. We sat in a corner, ordered coffee and pie, and talked like nothing was wrong. But under the table, her foot brushed mine, a silent anchor. "Let them look," she whispered. "This is our life." That night, we went for a drive out to the fields, the truck's heater blasting against the chill. Parked under a sky full of stars, she turned to me. "Ethan, I'm scared. What if this blows up? The school, the town, they could make it hard." I took her hand, tracing her knuckles with my thumb. "Then we handle it together." "I'm not running." She leaned in, our foreheads touching. "You're braver than I ever was at your age." I smiled. Age doesn't matter anymore, not to me. From then on, we stopped hiding. We'd walk by the lake in daylight, her arm linked in mine. I'd pick her up after school, ignoring the raised eyebrows. The gossip peaked. "She's old enough to be his mother. What does she see in a farm boy?" But it faded as people got bored or saw we weren't fazed. Sophia stood tall through it, her chin up in staff meetings, her lessons sharper than ever. And me? I stopped shrinking. No more kid from her lips. Instead, it was Ethan, with a warmth that made my chest swell. One evening, as spring teased the air with warmer winds, we sat on her porch swing, the lake thawing with soft cracks echoing in the dusk. The fields beyond were stirring back to life, green shoots pushing through the mud. She rested her head on my shoulder, her hand in mine. "I might not be young anymore," she said quietly, vulnerability creeping in. "My body's changed, my past is messy. What if you wake up one day and regret this?" I turned to her, lifting her chin gently. "Sophia, you make me feel needed. Seen. Like I'm more than just the guy who fixes things. And I want to be your support. Through the good days and the ones that hurt." Tears glistened in her eyes, but she smiled. "And you give me hope. Like starting over isn't impossible." I pulled my coat around her shoulders as the chill deepened, her body leaning into mine. The world around us, the judgmental stares, the age gap that once loomed like a wall, faded. We weren't teacher and maintenance man anymore. No more kid. Just two hearts that had found shelter in each other, weathering the storm and emerging stronger. We chose to live in the now, not worrying about tomorrow's whispers. In Willow Creek, where everyone knows everything, we carved out our own quiet truth. Love doesn't care about numbers or labels. It just needs two people willing to lean on each other. And that's what we became. Each other's anchor in a town that tried to pull us apart.